Today's session is kind of like a brainstorming activity. Like, I don't have all the answers, no one has all the answers, but between us we have quite a lot of ideas. So I'm just going to go through like a few examples of things that we could possibly like start doing or change in our own lifestyles. Some of you might already do these things already, you might have been doing them 10 years ago, be ahead of the trend, but just some ideas, and then we'll have an opportunity to like share with each other any of your own. So step one, before we start anywhere, is to look at what we're doing already and what our environmental footprint will be. So all of us are different. Some of us will be vegan and walk everywhere and like make your own clothes and everything and grow all your own vegetables. And some people it'll be a really big challenge to give up certain like food types or anything. So we're not expecting everyone to like suddenly go and, I don't know, live a subsistence lifestyle on a mountain somewhere. But just to have a little think about what parts of your lifestyle you could change, what things are already really good for the environment, and what things think you need to reduce. So there are some really useful tools online. There's a couple here, and obviously the PowerPoint will be available after this, so you can have a look at the links. And there's like little tools to calculate your own footprint. But be realistic. Like, it doesn't take the entire, like, we're not expecting everyone to give up everything, but if everyone takes a little bit of action, it'll make a massive difference. So we're going to go through like a few different categories now of different things with just a few ideas. So the first one is transport. So there's a few everyday changes we can make. Some people might do this already, some people might not. So wherever possible, walk. Then if you can't walk, cycle. If you can't cycle, use public transport. If you can't use public transport, car share. If you can't car share, group your errands together. So if you need to go to the shop, think, do I also need to go to the bank? Or do I also need to drop this thing at someone else's house who lives nearby? So you can group all the things together to save on different journeys. And then finally, question journeys. Like, do I actually need to go and do this thing? Or can I stay at home? And can I do the same job from home? Obviously, over the pandemic, we've learned that technology is incredible. And okay, it is nice to get out of the house. But you can do a lot from your own house. So really question whether, if you're like going to get in your car, like, do you actually need to make that journey? Or is there another way of doing that task? Now thinking about like one-off trips, so holidays or like business trips, can you stay local or just stay in the UK for holidays? Think about the environmental footprint of doing that, because some UK holidays might not actually be that good. But if you have to go abroad, avoid flying wherever possible. So that is quite tricky. Like, it's quite hard to get a train to the Bahamas, for example. But wherever possible, cut back on flights. So obviously trains are a really good one. Cycling, if you're ambitious, or like at least grouping together and trying to figure out like what the best way of doing it. I think there's calculators online as well you can see. And then if you do have to fly, or even if you go in a car, have a think if there's any like charities or organizations you can donate to, or anything else that you can do to try and offset your carbon footprint. So for whatever like pollution you're causing, you're also making up for it in one way or another. And then a massive challenge. Obviously this depends on your own circumstances, but if you're willing and in a position where you could make a big investment, really consider, like, if you're, for example, if you need to get a new car, if your old one is a bit kaput, or whatever, think if you can switch to a hybrid or an electric car, or even just sell your car, just give it up, see what it's like, even if it's just leave it on the drive for a few months or a week, to test it out, see if it works, and then you could always make that switch if it obviously suits your lifestyle. We've got to be realistic here. So that's some ideas for transport. I'm so sure some people will have other ones later. Moving on to a big one now, food. We all use it every single day, and that will stay the case. But it's just about trying to make what we consume have less of an impact on the planet and be more sustainable in the long run, because there's a lot of people on the planet and that number's increasing. So we really need to be careful. So some easy switches we can make, like use a reusable water bottle or a cup. If you haven't got a reusable water bottle already, just get on a website straight after this call and get one. They're like £5–10, and then you'll never need to buy a water bottle ever again. If you like hot drinks, also treat yourself to a reusable coffee cup, and actually remember to take it to places. Don't just like be like, oh, I have got one, but I'll just use a disposable one for now. And then again, take your own bag shopping, or a big box, whatever it is. Lots of supermarkets do like scan as you shop, so you don't even have to worry about like if you take a big box having to like unpack it all and then repack it, or you can literally pack into your shopping bags as you're going around the shop, and then just scan the thing at the checkout, pay your money, off you go. So it makes it a lot easier. A few things that are a bit more time consuming and require like a bit more thought is reducing your food miles. So whether that's shopping locally at a market or wherever that may be, or standing in the vegetable aisle or whatever aisle and looking on the packaging and seeing where is this come from and weighing up which one is the best option to go for. It might take 20–30 seconds. It might cost you an extra 20p in some situations, but really have a look. Also look for ones that say like, oh, it was grown in East Anglia, but it was packaged in Ireland, because that kind of makes no sense if then you're buying it in London. If there's one that was packaged in the north of England, it's probably a bit better. However, if you can avoid packaging, that's another good step. So again, buy your own loose fruit and veg. If you do scan as you shop, it makes it really easy because you can weigh your things, get the sticker, put it in your bag, and then you just scan all the stickers. But people at customer service desk in supermarket can help you if you're stuck on those. Or feel free to drop me a message. And then source the most sustainable products possible. So for example, if you're buying like meat or fish, have a look at what their like sustainability policies are on the product, see where it's farmed, the situation it's farmed. Obviously, like things like free range eggs are better than not free range eggs. We want happy chickens. Also on products like chocolate, like look if there's a fair trade sticker. Obviously, the climate crisis affects people everywhere, but some people are suffering much more than us. And also they tend to be the people who haven't caused as much as the problem. So things like social justice tie into it really, really closely. So if you can find things that are A, sustainably like grown, but B, like ethically made, that's much better. And then a few things that require like a bit of an initial investment but have a big impact like in the long run. So if you drink a lot of tea, switch to loose leaf tea. You don't need tea bags anymore. You just need a little container to put your loose leaf tea in, pour the water in, and then that's it, over and over again. No more tea bags needed. You can grow your own herbs. So you could get seeds or things, or you could go to the supermarket, and when they sell those pots of like coriander and things for like £1.50, just buy a pot and then take it home, and then just like cut some cuttings off and then make your own. And then you spent £1.50, but you've got herbs forever. And then swap single use for reusable. So a couple of things we've already talked about, water bottle and cup and things. If, for example, you're having a summer barbecue, obviously don't use like disposable plates and things where possible. If you want straws for your drinks, invest in some like stainless steel straws or glass straws, which then you can wash and use again, so you don't have to use plastic or paper ones. Or if you like a fizzy drink, or you've got kids or grandkids who like a fizzy drink, there is a wonderful machine called a SodaStream, which I'm not endorsed, like I'm not sponsored by them. However, it essentially means you never need to buy a fizzy drink again, which means you never need to buy plastic water bottles again. It comes with like CO2 canisters that at the end you can refill at the supermarket, and you just make your own fizzy drinks. So you can have nice things, but it's just thinking about how we can do it a little bit better. A few more on food, because it is a big topic. Now we're getting a bit more challenging, so change your diet. Obviously, if you eat meat every single day, it has a bad impact on the environment, but I'm not going to ask you to go vegan immediately, because that is a really, really big challenge. So it might be dropping meat at one meal a day or once a week on like one day. If you already only eat meat rarely, try going vegetarian. If you like, I mean, I'm kind of vegetarian at the moment, I'm flexitarian, but if you're in my position, try to then like maybe like reduce the dairy consumption, because like I like cheese a lot, but I'm not willing to give it up. But I can definitely reduce it a bit and still like be happy. And then another challenging one beyond things like vegetarianism and veganism, is switch to a seasonal diet. So obviously in supermarkets nowadays, we can walk in and you can buy like turnips and parsnips and pineapples and mangoes and bananas all year. Like it's kind of silly. So try and think like you can Google on what is in season things, try and eat seasonal products, and it'll probably tie into what's like locally sourced as well. So killing two birds with one stone, although we don't want to kill any birds, the point is to save the planet. So if you want another challenge, if you've got lots of time, if you like gardening, it can be a hobby as well. You could try growing your own fruit and veg. Obviously, if you're stuck with space, try and small. But if you've got loads of space, transform your garden. Why not? And then, like, this goes for everything, just avoid as much packaging as possible. So whether it's finding a local zero waste shop or some supermarkets, so like I think some Asda, some Tesco, some Waitroses now have all like the refillable things. So see whatever there is possible around you to reduce that waste. If you can't reduce waste because you don't have that facility to you, so for example, if you need to buy pasta and the only option you've got near you is to buy in a packet, buy it in a big packet, because then the ratio of food to packaging is a lot better for the environment than buying really, really small bags of pasta, because pasta just won't go off. Like, you'll be fine. Don't do that with like satsumas because it will end badly. But yeah, wherever possible, either just scrap the packaging completely or buy in like a massive bag, or a box or whatever it is. And then I don't know why I put this in the really more challenging thing. I mean, it might be a challenge. As like a step going forward, I'm assuming people have got a lunchbox. If not, that should go on the list of things that you need to invest in. Pack waste-free lunches. That like there's no need for there to be any plastic or packaging of any sort in your packed lunch if you're going to work or going on a picnic or wherever. Sandwiches, they don't include packaging. Obviously, they've come from, maybe bread's come from a bag, but it doesn't. Yeah, you don't need to then repackage it. You're not selling it or anything, I presume. And then like fruit, that doesn't need any packaging. Whatever snack, it doesn't need extra packaging. Try and scrap things like chocolate bars and things. If you can do any baking, whatever, that might be better. So those are some ideas. Now, when going to breakout rooms, I'm sure food will be a big topic that people already have their own things they do. So that's great. And feel free to share them. That's the whole point of the session. But I'm going to move on to another category, which is something we all use, which is toiletries. So toiletries, like, they're something you don't necessarily notice using up lots of packaging because you don't necessarily buy them as often as food. But there's lots of options now to switch to lower packaging versions of everything. So obviously shops like Lush exist where like nothing is packaged, or things are in like bottles that you can then take back to the shop and they reuse them. But it is a bit of an expensive shop, so like completely understandable if you don't want to use it. There are cheaper alternatives though, so look for things like shampoo bars. Buy soap over shower gel because you just don't need the bottom. You can now get toothpaste tablets, which I've tried and they're actually okay. So yeah, it's a bit of an odd one, but you get them in like a little jar, and then saves on toothpaste tubes because they're just not at all recyclable, I don't think. Switch to like a bamboo toothbrush instead of a plastic one, or if you're sticking with plastic, an electric toothbrush where you're just changing like the head of the toothbrush is better than buying an entire new toothbrush like all the time. So it's just cutting down what we can. And then there's a company, which the link is there for, which sells ethical plastic-free loo rolls. So it comes in a big box, and it's all like wrapped in paper. And then if your name's Margaret O'Leary, you can then wrap up Christmas presents with the paper that each loo roll is wrapped in. So it's an extra source, you know, but no plastic involved. And obviously we all need loo roll. So those are a few toiletry ideas. And obviously don't worry, the PowerPoint will be up on the website later. So don't just like jot everything down. Moving on to just other general consumer goods, because we live in a consumer world. I feel like I'm speaking to the right audience here when I say books. Number one, if you can, use a library, because then you don't have to buy any books, so you save your money. But also you aren't just like feeding into the production of so many new books. It's not going to produce waste. if you can't use a library because they're all getting shut or whatever, buy books from a charity shop. And then like once you've read the book, if you want to keep it, if you think you'll read it again, fair enough. If you want to pass it to a friend, fair enough. But if you don't think you'll ever read it again and you've spent 99p on it, you might as well give it back to the charity shop. They can keep making money out of it. They'll have already priced it up as well, so you're saving a job for someone. And then just keep going like that. Just keep it in the cycle without having to buy all these new products. And if you can't find the book you want in the charity shop, look online for shops that sell secondhand books, because it's still better than producing brand new ones all the time. Similarly with clothes, if you can and you're talented like me, upcycle old clothes. So if you've got a pair of jeans that have ripped, see if you can make them into shorts or just patch up the jeans. Buy clothes in charity shops where possible, and then donate your clothes to charity shops. But if you are having to buy new items, really research what the company's ethical policy is. And some companies now, even like big ones like Adidas and Nike and things like sportswear, other companies as well, they'll have like product range which are like the sustainable ones. Obviously double check what their sustainable policy is, because they might say sustainable and it'd be like 10% recycle or something, which looks good but isn't actually incredible. You could probably find better elsewhere. But some like companies make them like out of like ocean plastic or anything like that. So have a little research around before you like invest in something, and don't just buy something when you like first see it. Think if you actually need it. And often it's better to go out, if you're going for clothes, like know what it is you want, do your research really, really well, and don't get distracted by everything else in the shop, which is obviously very difficult, but yeah, it's a good challenge. And moving on to presents, I mentioned it earlier. So wrapping paper should be a thing of the past, which is obviously very challenging when it's what everyone uses. But it gives a really good opportunity to get creative. So you could use the cover for the loo rolls if you go for that company. You could use newspaper, and you could make it really personal here. If you save some newspapers during the year, you could wrap up someone's present for their birthday with like last year's newspaper from that date with a really nice news story. Like try find the nice news stories, not like the sad ones. But then you can make it a really like personalized gift. If you don't have like newspaper or anything else, use recyclable paper. So lots of wrapping paper, because of the material it's made out of, it can't actually get recycled. So try and find things just like plain brown paper often is a really good bet, which you can get in like most post offices. And if not, use like reusable bags or like pillowcases and things. Then that person is then essentially getting a gift bag that they can then wrap up things with, moving forward. So just really think, like, do you need to be buying the wrapping paper? The answer should be no, because if you've got a newspaper in your house, you've got an abundance of wrapping paper already. And then for cards, obviously it's a really nice thing to send a card. And this is where it gets a bit tricky, but try sending e-cards if possible. Obviously it saves on the materials itself, it saves on like the transport of the card. Sometimes, so like depending obviously who you're sending the card to, they might appreciate more a text or a phone call on their birthday or Christmas or whatever it is. And then if you tell them like you've donated the cost of what the card was to charity, that might actually be something they'd prefer instead. And then you're not like, again, buying more materials that you don't need. Or if you do really want to send a card, which is fair enough, see if you can upcycle an old card, or like find recycled cards that have already been recycled. So lots of cards companies make ones that have been recycled and then can be recycled. So just have a little look when you're shopping. Okay, so finally we're moving on to other general household things. Now there's an abundance of things we could talk about, and this is just like skimming the surface, but finances is one. So have a look at what your bank's investment is like. So if your bank, I've got a list here based off the trusty source of Google, if your bank is investing in fossil fuels or anything else dodgy, maybe think if you can divest and if you can switch your bank account to a more ethical bank. So some of the worst banks at the moment, as of 5 minutes ago when I checked online, are Barclays, HSBC, NatWest, Lloyds and Santander. The better banks, obviously, like you want it in, especially if it's like, oh, you want to be checking these like banks out and things. So there are a couple of new ones which you might not have heard of, which are better, which are Triodos, and Monzo and Starling. Also Nationwide, which obviously is a big name that people trust. They're a much better bank. Co-op, you'd think is a good bank. It's dropped recently, but it's better than some of the others. So just have a little bit of research online. Think about what bank you are using and if it is feasible for you to change it. Because that is obviously, we're little people and we can make our individual actions and it will make an impact, but money makes this world go round. So it's placing your money where you want the world to be going, essentially. Energy, obviously we all use energy every single day. Instead of using a tumble dryer, let your clothes dry naturally if possible. Wash on low temperatures as well if you can. Switch your plugs off or unplug them, and switch your appliances off. Don't just leave them on standby. Including mobile phones. I think I'm probably speaking to, I don't know, I'm really bad at just leaving, like locking my phone, never turning it off. But sometimes like it uses energy when it's off, so just, when it's not, but it's still on. So turn it off occasionally when you're not using it. If you are in the position to, maybe consider investing in solar panels. Quite often solar panels, it is a tricky one because it might not actually like benefit you financially. However, if you can afford to do it, it will benefit the planet. So it's just deciding, what you're capable of doing, and seeing what the impacts you want to have. Okay, so there's loads more we can talk about. We could talk about our water consumption, reducing that, thinking about like if you're having building work done on your house, where are you sourcing materials from? Do you actually need the building work doing? Things like that. Turning heating off, putting an extra jumper on, simple things as well. However, it's a bit boring if I'm just talking to you. So we're going to pass over to all of you. We'll pop you in some breakout rooms. And essentially, there's no set rules for this. But in your breakout rooms, you choose one person just to feedback, although we're going to try and experiment with a bit of group brainstorming when we get back, which could all end badly, but we'll see. It'll be a bit of fun. So these are a couple of questions, but it's essentially just what could we do better, or what do we already do that other people might want to learn from. You can use the categories that I've said as a guide, to like transport, food, other goods, presents, and like general household stuff. But it's a really free game just to try and inspire each other, and to suggest our ideas and also to learn from each other as well. So I'm just going to share my screen. There is a wonderful website called menti.com. So I encourage you on your devices to now put it into.
I've just shared it in the chat as well. So you can just
the link is in the chat. Just click onto menti.com and a website should come up, and it'll ask you for a code. And when you see that code, pop the code that's on the screen in, which is 147626. And then what we're going to invite you to do is to pop your ideas into like options that come up, and you can put in as many as you want. And from this, all things being well, we'll generate a bit of like a word cloud with everyone's ideas all over the place.
Okay, before we pray, let's just take a moment to center ourselves in the abiding presence of Christ and to recall all that we've spoken about this evening. Walk beside us, Lord, in the cool of the day, in the garden you have created as our common home. Walk beside us, Lord, as the cries of the forest pierce the dawn and flames rip through our common home. Grant us courage, Lord, as we walk beside all those who struggle to protect our common home. Grant us hope, Lord, and the vision to walk dark paths in the light of a single sunbeam. Grant us grace, Lord, to put the flourishing of all people and the wonder of your creation at the heart of all we do, as we strive to be guardians of our common home. Saint Francis, pray for us.